You're listening to Last Word Radio, where you get the last word.
Welcome to the Fourth Line Podcast in partnership with Last Word on Sports. This is July 15th, 2017, and with you today is myself, Carl. As mentioned, the always wonderful Joel decided that he deserves a vacation, and so he's gone. He's not here today, but we have more than adequately replaced him. We have, returning to the show, Mr. Nick Seguin, managing editor of Wings Nation. Nick, welcome back to the show.
Thanks. It's great to be back. I always love coming on and talking to you.
It's always nice to have an Avalanche fan and a Red Wings fan coming together and making a podcast together.
That's right. That's right. Even though our once great teams are now the basement dwellers, we can fight for last place now.
Yeah, our heated rivalry is now turned into like who can hate their team the most.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's start with your Red Wings. There's, we're through the heart of the offseason. A lot has happened. Start with the draft. Were you happy with what the Red Wings did in the draft?
The Red Wings, they had an interesting draft strategy, and then in that they decided to go for size. I think they've identified clearly their need for a defenseman. They chose a lot of defensemen. Over the last two drafts, I think they chose 9 defensemen with 18 picks or something like that. So they're filling that need, but there's a lot of talk about the Michael Rasmussen pick at number 9 because I think a lot of people felt he was not the best player on the board. They passed on Gabe Vilardi and took Rasmussen because they liked A, how big he was, and B, that he had good character. So I think that got a little overblown. He's going to be a great player in the NHL, but they pass on a lot of skill to take size, which is different for today's NHL.
Yeah, a lot of teams are going the exact opposite way on that.
Yeah.
Aside from in net, there's a lot of, the era of small defense, even small defensemen, Cale Maker going, 4th overall to us, under 6 feet as a defenseman. 4 years ago, unheard of.
Yeah, that was a solid pick too. We're pretty jealous of you guys for picking him up. That would have been nice. I was really hoping at number 9 that they were going to draft Liljegren. So when he fell and the Leafs took him, it just made me even more upset because the Leafs got him.
Just twist that knife just a little bit more.
Just a little, yeah. First you take our world-class coach, and then you take what could have been our top defensive prospect. Oh.
Yeah, well, that happened. And then free agency came, and the Red Wings didn't really do anything. Trevor Daley in the mix, really the only move, unless I'm forgetting one. And I think Daley, a quality defenseman, on a 3-year sub $10 million deal, not one you'll regret.
Yeah, I think the Daley deal is pretty good. I mean, free agency, the Wings couldn't really do anything because of their cap situation. So Daley, I think he signed him at like $3 million or 3.1 or something for an AAV, and it's really not terrible for the kind of player he is. I would prefer a 2-year deal, but I think 3, it's just that's what it was. That's how much it costed. So that's okay. And he's got a no trade clause until 2018-19, right before the deadline. So they can always flip him at the deadline if they can.
Yeah.
And they did make one other move. They signed Luke Witkowski off the Tampa Bay Lightning to a $750,000 one-way contract. Big burly guy, AHL player. He can play the wing or defense. Nobody's really sure why we signed him.
I was gonna say, I don't think we cover AHL super big here, but let's do it.
Really, it was really weird. I think his most memorable NHL, at least memorable for me because it was against the Red Wings, he fought Anthony Mantha and broke Mantha's finger. So I guess they figured, bring him on board. Why not?
Yeah, so he can break other teams' fingers.
Yeah.
Well, good for them.
weird. But I do like the Daley signing. I think that one will be beneficial for this team in the next 1 to 2 years.
Yeah, and then which brings us to now, what the Wings have left in the rest of the offseason. 2 unrestricted free agents, Andreas and a guy whose name I still can't say, and Tomas Tatar still restricted free agents. The Tatar one is one that's really gotten a lot of attention because he has said he's done with the Wings. What do you think is the outcome of that whole situation?
The Tatar ones, it's kind of weird. What he said was if they can't settle on a contract and it goes to arbitration and they get a 1-year deal, it will likely be his last year as a Red Wing. That's what he said. And then yesterday I saw another headline that said Tatar and Ken Holland have a great relationship and he wants to be on this team for a long time. So I think, there's some kind of context missing from some of these Slovakian interviews and maybe some errors in translation. But B, Tatar also knows what his value is and he's not going to back down. He's going to go for it. I think Detroit offered him 5 years at $5 million a year. Well, Tatar's looking at, Justin Abdelkader, who's getting $4.25 million a year, and Darren Helm, who's getting 3.8, I think. Eriksson's getting 4.25. He's worth a lot more than these guys. So I think he's seeing that and he's pushing a little more, probably in the 6 range, 6.5. I could see him going. I don't know if Detroit can afford that though.
That seems like the opposite of the rule the Avalanche had, where the Avalanche for years had the rumored Matt Duchene rule, where no one got more money than Matt Duchene. And now you have players on the wing saying, you know what, I don't want less money than these schmucks that you've overpaid.
Yeah,
it's a bit of a quandary they're stuck in there.
Exactly. What's Duchene making?
6.
Okay.
Yeah, they broke the rule with McKinnon, so that's over now. He's making 6.3, but for some time that was the rumored rule. No one makes more than Matt Duchene.
Yeah. Now it should be no one makes less than Jonathan Ericsson for the Red Wings. Yeah. But look, I think Tatar as a UFA, I think he would pull in probably $6 million. But with Detroit, I could see him settling at 5 to 5.5 if they're willing to give him the term, which is what they're stuck on right now. I think he wants 6 or 7 years.
Right, because this is his last year as a restricted free agent, correct? His next year will be UFA?
That's right.
Yeah, so certainly looking at that long-term deal. So that'll be interesting. The Wings kind of stuck in the fact that with their current cap situation, they're about 2.3 away from the cap. So a 5-year or a $5 million contract puts them right up against it, with Anatiasu still to sign as well. And then I saw some talk again coming from you guys over at Wings Nation. I think it might have been you, right, who wrote it, Thomas Vanek.
Yeah.
Is he actually coming back?
The report from Helene St. James of the Detroit Free Press was that they've remained in contact. And I believe that what remained in contact means is that if Ken Holland can move somebody and open up some space, then that opens a door for Thomas Vanek to come back. And I think Vanek's looking in the 2-year range, which I don't know if Detroit would give it to him. They shouldn't give it to him. I mean, they shouldn't even give him a 1 year at this point, but you never know with this team. So, yeah, he's not coming back right now. I hope he doesn't come back. The team does not need to take him on. They can't afford him. And he'd be taking a roster spot away from a young guy who is ready to make the jump to the NHL.
Well, and in that, it kind of the whole attitude and strategy the Wings have taken this offseason confused me. And as an Avalanche fan, I am well versed in confusing roster decisions. And I look at, the Trevor Daley sign, while certainly not crippling, while not an issue, it's a team that is right up against the cap and they're spending to it. And that's fine. The Red Wings still make tons of money. They're a team that can spend the cap and still make a profit. Not an issue. But for me, I look at that. I look at, Thomas Vanek. Why would you bring him back? This is a team that likely will not be competing for a playoff spot, and they're filling it with middle-of-the-road old veterans at sizable contracts with term at that. Really taking that spot where now they can't bring in young guys because they have Helm, they have maybe Vanek. You have, I know it's from last season, but you have, Franz Nielsen till he's 38 years old. So these are guys that you have. What is the Red Wings' vision for the future? Do they have a clear one, or is this Ken Holland playing for his job right now?
I don't know if they have a clear vision for the future because, like you said, they're all over the place. They've got these guys locked up in 7-year contracts pretty much until the early 2020s. They're screwed. And then they've got some... yeah. And then they've got these young guys like Athanasiou and Mantha and Larkin, and they're all going to be looking for to get paid because they're good hockey players and they deserve to get paid. And anywhere else in the league, they'll make a fair contract. But Detroit's going to be so strapped for cash that they're going to be asking to take a lot of team-friendly deals. And I think they're going to end up losing one or two of them.
Yeah, that's going to be unfortunate for Red Wings fans. Great for me. I will be very glad when Dylan Larkin says, "You're not going to pay me $7 million a year. I'm gone." So
that'll be a sad day.
For some people, yes, it will be. So the Red Wings, where do you think they finish this year? Looking at this offseason, looking at the season from last year, is there any hope?
I think there's always hope. There's always a Cinderella story. I mean, what are the odds that it's Detroit? Very, very low. I think last week on Wings Nation, Tom Mitsos did a piece on if this roster is perfectly healthy, what is the expected point total going to be? And I think they were just scraping 90 points if the roster is 100% healthy all season. And that is not even in the playoffs, I don't think. Not last year.
No,
I think the cutoff last year was...
Yeah, you'd be just out.
Yeah. But also, the other thing is last year, they went 9-0 in the shootout last year. That's not going to happen this year. They're going to lose points there. I think they're going to be closer to the bottom than the middle. They'll be down there with you guys.
Well, it'll be great company. We'll keep each other give some hope for the future throughout the season.
Yeah, we're going to need that.
I have none left, so that's fine. All right, let's get into some of the news of the week. The Tampa Bay Lightning signed their two restricted free agents in Tyler Johnson and Ondrej Palat. Two fairly, healthy contracts, fairly team friendly for the most part. A lot of people big fans of them. Tyler Johnson got 6 years, $5 million per, and Palat got 5 years, $5.3 million per, meaning that the Tampa Bay Lightning have their core locked up through the 2021-22 season. They have Stamkos, Palat, Johnson, Killorn locked up, Hedman locked up, even Vasilevsky locked up 3 more years, and then still a restricted free agent after that, so he could stick around. This Tampa Bay team is what it's going to be. That said, we saw last year miss the playoffs. With these signings, do you have great excitement for them if you were a Tampa Bay fan?
Absolutely. I think last year was a bit of an anomaly for them. I think they'll bounce right back and win the division this year. And I have to say, I am a Tampa Bay fan because let's not forget who's running that team.
It's true, Mr. Yzerman.
Steve Yzerman, my personal and professional hero.
Well, and so for me, I look at it, and last year, the biggest reason they struggled is because their best player was hurt for the year. Now, I know there's, Joel and I like to give a lot of, poke a lot of fun. I wouldn't say poke fun. We like to make it known that Steven Stamkos hurt a lot. but somewhat random injuries, at some point, the randomness stops being random and he just has something, whether it be a broken leg, blood clots. These are things that keep popping up. So whether he is or is not healthy is going to be the deal breaker for this team. And so when you're giving $8.5 million to a guy, you need him on the ice. He wasn't last year. They missed the playoffs. Honestly, for me, I think it stems from that. If they have Stamkos on the ice, this will be one of the top teams in the league. And if they don't, they will struggle.
He's definitely a difference maker. Like, he's a huge difference maker for this team. And they did struggle last year with it. And like, I feel bad for the guy, though. He's got to be so frustrating every year with all these injuries.
And yeah, it's not like it's the same. It's not like he's like, well, I've got this knee that I just can't rehab, or I'm not rehabbing properly. It's just the randomest of things.
Yeah. So, like, going into next season, do you count on him being healthy all season and the season after that? Because it seems like every year this guy's missing chunks of games. I don't know.
Yeah, that is the big question, is what will you get out of Stamkos? And, for me, while these deals for the Lightning forwards are good, they're not great. They're solid deals. They have them locked up to a reasonable cap hit for a long time. And that's what, that's how you get that reasonable cap hit. But these are two guys who, in Johnson and Palat, haven't scored 20 goals for some time. Johnson scored last 2 seasons ago. He had 19 and 14. Palat hasn't scored in 3 years. He's gone 16, 16, 17 the last 3. So these are, you're paying $10.3 million for two guys who haven't scored 20 goals and certainly still are contributors in other ways. Both have hit, well, I guess Palat hit 50 points this last season. That's nothing to be ashamed of. And that's probably, that's about the value you'd be looking at for a $5 million contract. So while good, not great. And I think we saw a lot of hype about all the Tampa restricted free agents and how they were going to pay them. Yzerman, like you said, he did a magnificent job clearing out cap space to be able to make these deals happen. This is, the fact that they have Tyler Johnson and not Valtteri Filppula is huge. That's a huge thing for them. So for me, definitely like these deals. Don't love them, though. There's nothing here that excites me in, okay, yeah, we have Tyler Johnson for another 6 years. Great.
Yeah. He's what, like a second line center, I guess?
Yeah.
I guess the other thing that's noteworthy, though, is that Yzerman expects this team to be, and I think the players do too, they expect to be in the playoffs for the next several years. And those guys are big playoff performers. They've done well in the playoffs. So, that might be where it comes in too. I don't follow Tampa Bay that closely. But, if they're in the playoffs and they've got a healthy Stamkos and you got Tyler Johnson and Ondrej Palat playing above their skill level, that's a dangerous team.
Oh, certainly. Obviously we've seen it before. Their run just a couple years ago facing the Blackhawks, quality team. And this is essentially that same team. There's a few pieces missing. And I think, most notably the switch from Bishop to Vasilevsky. Personally, I'm a huge Vasilevsky fan. I've loved seeing him play since seeing him World Juniors in Calgary here. Just phenomenal at the time. And I think now that he has that net, we'll see him continue to develop. And I think he is a good enough goaltender to be the Ben Bishop replacement and take them to the Cup Finals or win the Stanley Cup. So, other news.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say I agree. I think he's capable of doing that. So, and I am cheering for Tampa Bay when my team's not involved. I miss Steve Yzerman.
Which is an interesting conundrum. I know we've been talking on the show about me picking a new bandwagon team.
Yes.
Through the last bit. And it interests me that you've now mentioned twice that you are pro Tampa with them being in the same division as you. How do you reconcile that?
Well, part of it is the fact that Steve Yzerman is a former Red Wing. Like, we all love Steve Yzerman. There's nothing that Stevie could do that would make us dislike him or hate him in any way. I love watching Steven Stamkos play. I think he's a great hockey player. And when he's playing, I love watching him play. So I like Stamkos. I like Yzerman. And then I know that my team's not super competitive right now. The Lightning are pretty exciting. They're frustrating. It was only a few years ago where they were brawling with us out on the ice in the first round. And we did have a couple first round exits. But they're a fun hockey team to watch. They've got a good level of skill and speed, and also, that toughness. Or they did at the time. I guess Brian Boyle's gone now.
Yeah.
I don't like Brian Boyle.
Well, there you go. Now that worked that he went to Toronto then. Just more people
exactly.
you didn't like in Toronto.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Jaromir Jagr is a guy who staying in Florida, last played for the Florida Panthers, still without an NHL contract, to the shock of many. A guy who, was a contributor last year in Florida on a team that certainly wasn't the best, and is without an NHL contract. But the real thing, 45 years old. I don't think it should ever surprise someone that people aren't clamoring to sign a 45-year-old NHL player.
Yeah, but he put up like 45 points last year.
That is 100% true.
So, I don't know. Who cares how old he is? He's still producing points. I guess you have to deploy him in the right way, but I'd sign Jagr.
Well, and that is the question, is there's a lot of teams, a lot of fan bases, I should say, very much interested in signing Jagr. And teams are not. I think you look at every single team, they look at their roster and they say, you know what? Yeah, I'd take Jagr, especially if no one wants him. If no one wants him, they look at it and they say, you know what? He clearly wants to stay in the NHL. He's had offers from other leagues. He's had offers all around. He wants to stay in the NHL. And it could be the fact that at this point he's had some offers. We don't know the goings on, but he could have had offers and wants to, at this point, Jagr probably just, he wants to play, but also winning is good. If you're at 45 years of age, Jagr does not need it for the money. He does not need it for the accolades. He wants to do it because he wants to play, and probably because he wants to win. And so you're looking at, do I want to go back to a Florida Panthers team that I missed the playoffs with last year? Probably not. And a lot of these teams that are playoff contenders are right up against the cap. They're full up. And so, sure, you could sign with the Colorado Avalanche and play top line minutes with Nathan McKinnon and the, ragtag group of misfits over there in Denver, but you're not really going to do anything. And so for me, I look at all of that and I say, well, sure, I could see why Jagr hasn't signed anywhere yet. Do you think he gets a contract by the end of this offseason?
Yeah, I think he'll settle somewhere. I think you're right. He probably wants to go to a winning team, but, when it gets late enough into the offseason, I think at some point he'll just say, I just want to play hockey. So let's go to one of these middle-level teams, that whichever one he feels has the best shot of winning. Maybe it's a one-year deal, and maybe they tell him we'll flip you at the deadline to a contender who needs the help. I don't know. Maybe he'll go to Toronto.
Anti-trade clause, like you must trade me. Yeah.
Sorry?
An anti-trade clause, like you must trade me at the deadline.
Yeah, exactly.
If I'm still here, my cap hit goes, that's the bonus. I get an extra $2 million if I'm still here on March 1st.
Yeah, totally. That would be new. I think he should go back to Pittsburgh and finish off his career in Pittsburgh.
I would love to see him in Pittsburgh. And I know, they're a team with not a lot of cap space. They're always right up against it, but he can sign for just the cheapest of deals.
Yeah, I can't see him being hung up on money.
No.
That would be a weird one.
Yeah, that is, part of the situation with him. Money is not the thing. He didn't make a ton last year in Florida. He signed for a very reasonable one-year deal with, some performance bonuses, And so for me, I look at it and, yeah, can Jagr still perform? Yes. Like you said, he put up 45 points last year. So, 16 goals, 30 assists. Great. Bring him in. And the worst that happens, Joel and I always say, no such thing as a bad one-year deal. If you can fit him under the cap, you're golden.
I wonder if I don't know what these teams' cap space looks like, but like I wonder if he'd be a good fit in like a Columbus or a Minnesota. Those teams who had really good regular seasons and just kind of fell short in the playoffs.
Yeah, that could definitely be a good fit. I think, like, honestly, if I look at any team, like, hey, do you need a scoring winger? Oh, you do? Because everyone needs some scoring? Bring him in. Because at this point, he's not going to get the $4 million he got last year. If it's $2-3 million, that is a very reasonable. Here's the question: Thomas Vanek or Jaromir Jagr? To me, I'd much rather have Jagr than sign Thomas
totally.
Vanek to, especially if he's looking for term. If he's wanting 3 years, no chance.
Yeah, totally agree. I would take Jagr over Vanek too. Did you say Jagr made $4 million last year? $4 million?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
At 44 years old. Good for him.
Yeah. Right. Why not?
I think he was hoping to finish out his career in Florida, though.
It's a great place to do it. Him and Luongo just hanging out for the rest of their careers down there.
That sounds like an amazing duo.
Yeah. Well, and I think everyone wants him to sign in Vegas because the Jagr in Vegas thing would just be potentially that's how he ends his career. Is he can't function anymore after living in Vegas.
Took 45 years to break him, but Vegas did it.
We finally found his kryptonite.
That's right.
Young defenseman Jaccob Slavin, a name that I probably have mispronounced already. Signed.
You guys mispronounce every name you say on here, so it's okay.
Yeah. Come on. I tried to say Anatiasu. Like, how close was I on that?
Not close.
Hey, well, stick with what works, right?
All right, yeah. Okay, go on. Go ahead.
So he signed a 7-year, $5.3 million average value contract with the Carolina Hurricanes. And this is a guy who, to be fair, he signed this sizable contract, a comparable contract to the one signed by Anaheim's Hampus Lindholm last offseason. And, we've talked about Lindholm. We've talked about, how the Ducks needed to keep him. And to be honest, this is the very first time that we have mentioned Slavin on the show. And I first even paid attention to him and noticed him. Obviously, I did not watch a lot of Carolina Hurricanes hockey this year. I don't think many people did. And so when I noticed that he got a vote in the Norris running, I thought, even if that's a homer vote, the young defenseman I know from Carolina is Noah Hannafin. And this is the guy who's getting the Norris votes. What is going on there? And now he comes and he gets this big contract. Lindholm, they paid big money or big value to keep him in Anaheim, so they didn't lose him to Vegas in that draft. And now we've got, looking at this as a comparable contract, Slavin to Carolina, looking into what he did, quality defenseman, certainly worth the money, and for a team in Carolina that is able to make this deal. All they have are the scraps of the Chicago Blackhawks, Jeff Skinner, Aho, and Cam Ward, and now, Hannafin and Slavin on the back end.
Yeah, Ron Francis has done a pretty good job putting this team together. Like you, I don't follow the Carolina Hurricanes that closely. But I'm just looking at their roster right now, and they do have a lot of former Chicago players on here.
Yeah, they've got, Darling, Trevor Van Riemsdyk, Joachim Nordstrom, Tuevo Tueravainen, and Marcus Kruger. I think there's another one that I'm missing, but
I don't know. I think the general opinion right now is that Carolina is going to be a good team in the next couple of years. I love the Scott Darling deal for them. I thought that was a great move.
Well, and for me, I look at it and I am, looking at the bandwagon. A lot of people said jump on the Carolina bandwagon right now before it gets full. I'm like, yeah, it might not get full, but this is a team with a very good upward trajectory. And I'm actually strongly considering it because, time zone wise, it's a different time zone. Games would start 2 hours before my Avalanche games. I can watch that. If the Hurricanes are losing, I can go watch another team lose in Denver, and I'm fine. So this is a team that I am actually strongly considering this being my secondary team this year. If they make the playoffs, great. If they don't, then I'll just jump right back on the Caps when they win the President's Trophy and lose to the Penguins in the second round.
Carl, you gotta give it up, man. It's not healthy for you. It's hurting me watching you go through this.
What would you do? Like, I know you have Tampa, but if you were in my situation, I've got the Caps as like that second team. I've got the Avs as my first. Should I just stick with the Avs? Should I don't know, Nick. Help me out here.
Well, I mean, you can't walk away from the Avs. They're your team. The secondary team, though, it's just hurting you almost as much as your primary team is.
That's why I need to fix it.
You might as well just start cheering for the Penguins.
Wouldn't be the worst of situations, that's for sure. But sticking in Carolina, they had an offer this week to buy the team. There was rumors last offseason that current owner Peter Karmanos was looking to not move the team, but to sell it. Some people thought, well, if he sells the team, they're going to get moved. So he has an offer to buy the team for a rumored amount of $500 million. Certainly no small chunk of change. The rumor is if the team says, and I think the team's going to say this, that if the team is purchased, that it'll be a move that lets them stay in the Carolina area for the foreseeable future. And while that is possible, you don't know the owner's motives 100%. $500 million, certainly a big chunk of change, similar to the expansion rate that the Vegas Knights put forward. So that's kind of, we look at that and you're like, okay, that's the going rate for a, low tier NHL franchise right now. What do you think of the potential ownership swap there in Carolina? We've seen, a recent move in Phoenix, where they're saying that he's going to keep them there. The Hurricanes staying in Carolina. Is that going to happen?
I don't know. They always say the team's never going to be moved until the team is moved. Like all these quotes and stuff, they don't really mean anything. I think, if the right deal comes up and the right city comes up, they'll move the team if it makes sense for them financially. I certainly don't think the intention is to move the team.
Right. It's not like a guy from a location, because the person who's making the offer is quite likely the current CEO of the Texas Rangers. Texas does not need, because the Texas Rangers play out of Dallas. Dallas has a hockey team already, so it's not like he's making this offer to move them to his city. We knew when the Thrashers got bought by a group from Winnipeg, they were moving them to Winnipeg.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and look, the Hurricanes I can't remember what year they came into the league. Late 90s maybe. Yeah. And they won a cup in 2006, I think. So there's definitely some history there. They, I don't think their attendance is hurting. I don't pay a ton of attention to the Hurricanes, but I would think they've got a pretty strong fan base.
I think it's one of those things where, much like the Blue Jackets, the fans there are quite diehard, and when they start to win, you will see them come back in droves. Carolina this year was, however, dead last in attendance by a significant chunk. They were more than 1,000 people per game, averaging less than the Coyotes.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, there you go.
So in Carolina, attendance is lacking. They had less than 80% full buildings. And those are like, when you're that low, you're padding stats. Like living in Calgary, I know the Calgary ticket market the best. There is never there's bundles of tickets you could get, but there's never like game day deals because game day is sold out. When I watch out of market games, which would be, if I watch a Florida Panthers game and I see that, you can get a ticket to a game for $10 and includes a hot dog and a beer, That is insanity to me. And these are the kind of numbers that for me, I look and I'm like what kind of marketing promotions did the Hurricanes have to do to get to just under 12,000 a game? So certainly attendance, I think when they start to win, that's going to come back up, obviously. People like to win.
Yeah, totally. I agree. I think those game day deals are something that they don't do here in Canada, because I've never seen it for the Leafs, like you said. But Detroit does do stuff like, I don't know, 2 tickets and 2 hot dogs for $55, and you go to the game on a weeknight. And Detroit's never really been a team that's hurt too hard for attendance. But yeah, it is to fill those seats on a Wednesday night normally. So if the Hurricanes are, I mean, $10 is insane, but
yeah, I think it was 15, but it was ridiculously low. It was like a Valentine's Day special, because frankly, if you live in Sunrise, Florida, what do you want to do on Valentine's Day than to take your sweetheart to a Panthers game?
That's right. Oh man, I'd be at hockey games every night for that price.
Right. You couldn't get me away from there, so
yeah.
Well, we'll see what happens with the Hurricanes. Certainly, they will say, like you said, until they say otherwise, it does not sell tickets to say you're moving a team. So this new owner is going to want to make money, going to want to make a profit. So they're going to say, yeah, they're here until they're not.
Yeah, I don't think they're going anywhere. It could just be a case of Carmano's, like he brought them into the league, so maybe he's just like, okay, I'm done now. It's been 20 years or whatever.
Yeah,
I don't know the whole story, but
no, certainly lots happening down there in Carolina. Nick, do you follow college hockey at all?
Not as much as I should, or I'd like to.
Okay, because I also don't. But there is, a growing number of people who are big fans, especially, you are in Southern Ontario. Does Toronto count as Southern Ontario?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I know, if you count the entire province, it's very southern. But if you count the part that people live in, it's like mid-southern, maybe?
It's close enough to the border.
Okay, there you go. So, Southern Ontario, close to Michigan, the hotbed. I would say the hotbed of college hockey. Michigan and the Pacific, or not the Pacific Northwest, not there. The Northeast of the United States. Maine, Connecticut, Massachusetts, lots of college hockey going on there. And we're seeing a lot more kids getting drafted into the NHL out of college. And so what we're doing today is we are starting something that we are calling Letter of Intent, a college hockey section of the Fourth Line podcast, where we bring you what's happening there. We talk about that and just kind of learn about what's happening. A section of the league that, we talk about junior hockey an amount, especially as World Juniors come up. We talk about that. We have, all these different places around the world that people are coming to the NHL from. And, college football is huge in the States. College hockey will never be that big, but it is certainly growing, and we wanted to give you a little bit of insight into what's happening there. So, without further ado, the very first letter of intent. Welcome back, everyone. We are very excited to be kicking off a brand new initiative we're doing here. It is going to be a college hockey segment / episode / who knows what it will exactly end up to be. But we're very excited to have with us today Miss Gwen DeYoung. Hello, Gwen.
Oh.
And Kyle Willard. Welcome, Kyle.
How are you doing?
Doing well. Excited to be here. We're going to talk college hockey today. It's a topic that Joel and I know essentially nothing about. In Canada, it is virtually impossible to follow college hockey. So luckily, we brought in a couple people who know infinitely more than we do. Very, very glad that Kyle and Gwen have joined us in that. So let's start there. You guys, big college hockey fans.
Yes.
Kyle, we'll start with you. What led to you being a college hockey fan?
Well, I grew up 15 minutes from Ann Arbor, Michigan, and that's pretty much a hotbed for college hockey with University of Michigan there. The U.S. National Development Team used to be there. Grew up going to games and season tickets at one point and played at Yost a few times, and pretty much how it all happened.
Gwen?
Well, I grew up in Kalamazoo, Michigan, which is a real place. It is a hotbed for hockey in the sense that we have Western Michigan University here, and they are probably one of the top programs and have been for a while. I went to Western, and I graduated from Western, but there I spent my senior year writing for the Western Herald, where I did sports photography, but I was also the beat writer for the Western hockey team, and it was the absolute best year of my life. But I've been around hockey for as long as I can remember, being so close to Western and always being able to watch them, going to GLIs and, having Grand Rapids right up the road. We have a lot of junior teams there too.
So for someone who doesn't follow college hockey, this year 5 kids went in the NHL, first round of the NHL draft, and we'll get to some of them in a bit. Is there a growth in quality prospects coming out of college hockey, or is it just, a coincidence that there was 5 this year?
No, I think it's definitely getting bigger. Every year you hear there's this many people on the Stanley Cup went to college, and I'd say 10 years ago you never heard that. They wouldn't put that stat out. Now they're trying to push it a little harder, and people are taking note of it that college hockey's coming up pretty hard.
Yeah, I'd have to definitely agree. I mean, you look at the Pittsburgh Penguins, they're basically every Stanley Cup that they've won the past 2 years, they've had good college players. Jake Gunston, or however you say his last name, he played for Nebraska Omaha, which is in the NCHC with Western, and I mean, that team has multiple college players on them, and they're usually no-named kids that nobody knows about. I think the growth in college hockey is becoming big, definitely across the states, and even moving out west where hockey isn't always the biggest thing.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think has led to that growth in college hockey, the better quality players coming out of there?
I would say probably just that kids are kind of thinking more ahead of it, where they think, I think it's 2 things. It's where they think they need to get a college education somewhat, because I think that's starting to become more important to kids. I know a lot of guys that play college hockey because they want to get a degree, but also want to continue to play hockey at a high level. And they have, junior hockey, but there's only so many junior hockey teams and so many slots that can fill. So I think it's becoming bigger and more competitive because kids are understanding that they want to get a college degree in case hockey doesn't work out.
Yeah, I think it's also it's on TV a lot more than it used to be. You don't ever see a junior hockey game on TV hardly. So guys want to get their name out there. I mean, everyone knew Jack Eichel 3 years before he went to BU and then went on to the NHL. And it just spreads your name so much faster than if you went to juniors.
Yeah, I would say that too. Like the pipeline for college hockey, everybody knows everybody knows everybody in college hockey, and I don't think I think it's somewhat the same for junior hockey, but definitely college hockey, everybody knows everybody, and your name gets out there much more often.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, it's, especially those of us from Canada, it takes some getting used to, because it's the exact opposite here. If you play college hockey in Canada, you're essentially not going anywhere beyond that. That's the highest you'll probably play. So certainly it takes a getting used to for a Canadian market, looking down at the States and seeing that college is the best way that most of these American kids are getting drafted. And we'll get to that, but even Canadian guys are going down to the States and playing some college hockey after their junior level.
Oh, I was going to say, our roster for WMU last year was actually 75% Canadian, and it's funny because we have a borders battle every year with a Canadian team, and usually we have just as many Canadians as they do. So, I mean, these kids are understanding that they can take another path that isn't just junior hockey or Canadian college.
Yeah, where I'm from, Adrian, Michigan, they just started a hockey program a few years ago, and it's 99% Canadian kids, and they are super good Division III team. I mean, if it wasn't such a tiny school, they could play up, but they'll never will. But they're so good, and everyone from Canada comes down just to play for that little tiny school.
Well, that's awesome. So, like I mentioned, 5 kids drafted in the first round of the NHL draft this year. Cale Maker, Casey Middlestad. Cale went to my Avalanche. Casey went number 8 to the Buffalo Sabres. Josh Norris went 19 to the San Jose Sharks. Jake Okener went 26th to the Dallas Stars, and Ryan Poehling went 25th to the Montreal Canadiens. And what's interesting to me is just the breadth of teams. It's not like just one team had everyone. These were guys who played in 5 different programs this year. Well, I guess Cale, the example there, he's playing there this year, in the same way that Tyson Yost, 2016 Colorado first round pick, played junior hockey and then went down to play. He played for, I believe, North Dakota last year. So we're seeing this happen some more. Some guys go down there. So let's kind of let folks know what to expect from some of these first round draft picks. The draft happened, 2-3 weeks ago. 5 players, and these are guys who, if you look at the averages, at least one of them is going to be most likely a top quality NHL player. So what can we expect? Let's start with Cale.
Cale's defenseman, right-handed. He's not a super big guy, but he's 5'11", 190-ish pounds. Like you said, he went to the Avs at number 4. He's out of UMass, or going to UMass next season. He played for the Brooks Bandits, 108 games. He had 34 goals, 96 assists, and 130 points. And you just look at those numbers and you get pretty excited, even if it is the Brooks Bandits he did it for. Dynamic offensive player, fast, great skater, very competitive, great hockey sensed, but he is a smaller guy, so he's got to get in the gym and get bigger if he wants to make an impact right away in the NHL. Yeah,
and I saw a lot of people trying to make the comparison to Erik Karlsson, because a smaller defenseman who's mobile. I think that's the dream, right? If you were able to draft an Erik Karlsson, you're happy with yourself.
Definitely, especially if you're the Avs and you had a terrible season and you bring in the second coming of Jesus to help bring it all back. But I don't think he's an Erik Karlsson.
Disappointing news there, Kyle. All right. Casey Middlestad went number 8 to Buffalo. He played in Green Bay, apparently. Didn't even know that was a place that had that. So is that near you, Kyle?
That'd be closer to Gwen.
Yeah, that's in Wisconsin, Carl.
It's not. It actually probably closer to you, Carl.
Yeah, it actually is.
Fun fact, Missouri and Wisconsin, they're actually different states. I don't know if you knew this.
They are.
Yeah.
Well aware of it.
Like, the letters are similar, especially if you turn that W upside down into an M.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
Close. Yeah. So,
all the time.
I'm going to go drink some more coffee. Let's talk about Casey.
Pretty big dude, 6 foot, 201. Center left wing, left-handed shot. Like you said, number 8 overall to Buffalo. Going to Minnesota next year, and he plays for the Green Bay Gamblers. 49 games, 34 goals, 60 assists for 94 points, which is a great couple of seasons. Very fast, not physical though. And I don't know how many people heard this, but he did 1 pull-up and 1 bench press at the draft combine, which I don't think impressed very many people.
Yeah,
I
can do a pull-up and a bench press.
Yeah, and creative puck skills, great with that, but obviously he's got to get stronger.
No doubt. Shout out to Kyle's kids as well.
Yeah, I got the door locked.
Oh.
That's a classic Joel move right there for sure.
Yep.
So with these two first guys, they're drafted in the top 10. What kind of, ETA for the NHL? Because I look at Tyson Yost last year, played junior hockey, played in the BCHL, went down to college, and then at the end of the season made his Avalanche debut. Is that kind of what we could expect from these guys, or is it a bit longer out?
I would expect that for Cale.
Yeah.
Like the Avs, don't really have much to go on because most likely they're not making the playoffs this year. No. Hopefully it's not as bad as last year, but I would expect he goes to their minor team and comes at the end of the season depending on how bad they really are.
Yeah. And I think, like you were saying, Cale isn't very big. I think he would probably do well with an extra, like if he went to Mass, I think he'd get a season in. I think it would help him mature as a player and help him get some muscle on his body. And he could end up, packing on the weight and being good there and then maybe be able to come out. But he has to spend a season with UMass. I don't see him coming. I don't see him going straight to the NHL.
No.
Or to any ECHL team or anything.
Well, that brings us to Josh Norris. He is a center, went 19th overall to the San Jose Sharks. What's his story?
Michigan boy. 6'1", 192 center, pretty big guy. Played for U.S. National Development Team, 86 games played, 39 goals, 48 assists, 87 points. So, point-a-game player. Going to Michigan, he's aggressive, strong skater, smart two-way player. But he's more of like a hard-to-the-net, dig-for-pucks guy. He's not going to snipe from the corners or dangle you around and score. He's going to stick his head down and fight for every puck and score the dirty goals. He's not that great of a puck handler, so he's your net front presence kind of guy.
Which you would, for a guy 6'1", under 200 pounds, definitely going to have to. Has Gwen talked about Cale putting some weight on that frame? A net front presence at 185 pounds, going to have to work on that a little bit.
Yeah, Michigan's going to have to get him bulked up a little bit, and hopefully he sticks around there and helps him out a little bit. I would enjoy that.
All right, two more to talk about. Ryan Poehling, newest Montreal Canadian. What's going on?
Well, one, not happy that he's the Habs, but Ryan Poehling is a center from St. Cloud State. He's a left-hand shooter. He is a very interesting player. He played as a true freshman this year. He played in 35 games. I believe he had 13 points, so 7 goals and 6 assists. He had a really rough start to the season, and it wasn't looking very good, but he ended up turning around about mid-season. He needs time to mature and become more physical, but other than that, he's a good skater. He's great puck handling. He can be good. He's still a young hockey player, but he has the potential to be a really good playmaker, and towards the end of the season, he showed really good playmaking skills. And I think he'll probably end up spending a couple more. He'll probably end up staying at St. Cloud. I mean, that makes the most sense. He's still, like Cale, he's pretty small and he's split on weight. But he's a good player. He has some bad times and some good times, but I think all in all he can be a good player. And I think the Habs honestly should be pretty excited about him because of his brothers that play at St. Cloud State, he is the best Poehling brother, I think. But I think the Habs should be really excited about the potential that he could have in the future for them.
All right, and one after him was a goaltender. Is there a lot of good goaltenders who come out of college?
I think there has been. Michigan hasn't had any good goaltenders in a while, so I mean but there's guys from Notre Dame that just signed with the Kings, I believe, and then I can't remember the other guy's name, but there's been a couple really good ones, but then there's some really bad ones too.
Oh, so many bad ones. Corey Schneider came out of college. So there's that. There you go. That was for Eric, our Devils fan.
Jimmy Howard came out of Maine.
So there you go. Proof that bad goaltenders do come out of college.
Yes. There's proof right there.
Oh.
All right.
But I would say that the increase of good goaltending is being seen in college hockey. I watched a lot of good goaltending in college hockey this year, from my goaltender at Western to, even this pick, Jake Ottner. I mean, from BU. This kid's impressive. Like, I'd say more impressed with him than I'm almost impressed with Ben Blackard from Western. He was 21-11 in net. He had a 2.1 goals against average and a 927 save percentage. This kid, he's good in the crease. He doesn't get flustered by much. I mean, he isn't afraid to come out and challenge skaters when it's one-on-one. This kid is, honestly, I can see why Dallas drafted him, sort of, besides the fact that they didn't need any more goaltending. But this kid could honestly play another season at BU and then come out and play at an AHL level, and I think he'd be just fine.
There we go. So, and goaltenders obviously take the longest to reach NHL level. So I think getting a couple more seasons under him certainly can't hurt.
Yeah, especially playing at BU. I mean, BU plays really good teams all the time. Their division, Hockey East, is really good. And, I mean, the kid's 6'4". He's going to be a good goaltender. He basically fills the net every time he plays. So he's impressive. He had numbers kind of like Western Michigan's goaltender Ben Blacker did. So, I mean, if that's any indication for what my team's future holds, I'll be happy with it.
Very good. Well, guys, thank you very much for stopping by for the very first, I guess we didn't say the potential name, the working name for this show. Kyle, you came up with the name, so
Yeah.
we'll let you give the honors.
Letter of intent. If you're a college fan, you probably know what that means. I think it fits perfect with this. Guys coming, going out, all that. So
yeah, welcome to the very first Letter of Intent segment. We'll be back throughout the summer, getting you ready for the start of the college hockey season. When does the college hockey season even start?
Starts at ours starts in October because we play preseason games.
Okay, so as we lead into October, same time as the NHL season, we'll be ramping up some college hockey content for you guys so that you can find out who's good, who's not, and just get a little insight into some of these prospects that are coming out. So guys, thank you very much for stopping by, and we'll see you again later.
Had fun.
Thanks.
Well, that was, a lot of fun talking college hockey. Thank you very much to Kyle and Gwen for, joining us to talk college hockey. And Nick, thank you for joining us today.
Oh yeah, anytime. Love being on the show.
This is your second time on the show, and I think it's about time that people get to know you a little bit better. Because right now we know you're a Red Wings fan. You write, managing editor over at Wings Nation. And know you live in Toronto. So that's kind of the first question that comes to mind for me is how does Nick in Toronto become a Detroit Red Wings fan?
Well, I'm actually from Windsor, Ontario, which is the city that borders Detroit. So I was born and raised here through the late 90s, which were the glory years for the Red Wings. So, I fell in love with that team. We were probably a 10-minute drive from Joe Louis Arena, so very frequently we were going to games over there, watching the Red Wings, Steve Yzerman, Sergei Fedorov, Nick Lidstrom. They were great years, and fell in love with the team then. When I turned 18, I moved up to Toronto to go to school. I went to York University and ended up staying there when I got work after.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I actually, for about 10 years, my grandparents lived in Windsor. So
oh, yeah?
We were always down there, and I don't think I ever fully appreciated how, I heard, yeah, they're close, but I didn't realize, they're essentially the same city.
Yeah, it's right there. If you look at the buildings, it doesn't even look like there's a body of water that separates us.
Yeah, and it's just a border crossing that keeps you. Actually, my grandfather worked, because he worked in the automotive industry like everyone in Windsor did at that time.
Yep.
And so he was always going across to Detroit and stuff. And so that actually is how somehow, and I can't remember who it is, and it is hidden right now. I've put away a lot of things in my house as I try to sell it. That's how I ended up this past Christmas receiving an autographed card from a former Detroit Red Wing that, because my grandparents live in Windsor, they were like, oh, here's this person we know.
Yeah, and a lot of the Red Wings lived in Windsor at that time. And keep in mind throughout the 70s, 80s, 90s, it was much easier crossing the border, getting back and forth. So they would still to this day, a lot of the Red Wings and Tigers, the young guys, will come over this side to party because the drinking age is lower here than it is back home for them. But back then, everyone was living in Windsor, and they'd just cross over because it was so easy.
Yeah. Well, so that's how you became a Red Wings fan. We know a little bit about you there, but let's get a little deeper into who Nick is.
Uh-oh.
This is, I know that we'd mentioned a couple of ideas, and then this morning while looking at the internet for some things, I threw a bit of an audible. So this is kind of a surprise twist for you. But pulled up a list of table topics questions, just some general questions. and
Okay.
kind of get to know who Nick is. So, what is the last new thing you tried?
Oh, the last new thing I tried. What is the last new thing I tried? The last new thing I tried was a new high-end whiskey that actually came out of Windsor, Ontario yesterday. It's called JP Wiser's.
So a new like kind of Weiser's whiskey?
Yeah, it was they did a Canada 150 bottle promotion where every bottle had a different week on it of every year Canada's been in existence, and it was like a premium high-end liquid in the bottle. It was really good, actually.
There you go. I personally not a huge whiskey fan. All I taste is burning and none of the flavor. So that would be entirely lost on me.
Well, a couple ice cubes will help dilute some of that, and you'll be able to taste it. I like my whiskey.
I usually use about 8 ice cubes. Like when I have whiskey and like someone pours me like a size of lemon, I'm like, oh yeah, lots of rocks, and then just like leave it in the sun for the afternoon and then come back later, and it's perfectly good for drinking.
It's just like whiskey flavored water.
Pretty much at that point, yeah. All right, what is the biggest accomplishment you have ever had in your life?
Biggest accomplishment I have ever had in my life. Wow, that's a tough one. Does getting engaged count? I just got engaged a couple months ago.
Yeah, that 100% counts, and congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. That was a pretty big one.
When is the big day? Do you have like a time yet?
Yeah, we do. It's next May, so May 2018.
Right in the middle of the playoffs. So I guess
Right
you won't
in the middle of the playoffs.
You won't need to worry about missing Red Wings games though, so you're fine.
It's strategic because she's a Leafs fan, so
you nailed it.
yeah, she's a little worried that they'll be deep in their Stanley Cup run in May. So there may be some iPads under the table. We'll see.
Yeah. It's interesting because, this is the offseason right now, and you start seeing on social media hockey player after hockey player getting married. It's the season of weddings.
Do you think they talk to each other and coordinate it? Because a lot of them have to be at each other's weddings.
Oh, you have, especially if some guys on the same team were, getting married. You've got to. There's only so many weekends in the offseason. You've got 12 to pick from. They
should just rent out a whole resort for a month, and then they can all do it one after the other.
I like it. Just have Markov and Ovi on the same weekend would be a disaster of a party, though.
Oh God, Ovi's a monster.
I assume you saw the video of him shirtless dancing at his wedding.
Oh yeah, taking notes.
Yeah, exactly. Right there. Work on your moves.
Yeah.
All right. Next question is, what is your biggest pet peeve?
Oh, my biggest pet peeve. I've got 2 really big ones, but probably the biggest one is people who use the word literally figuratively.
Yeah, which is everyone does that because they changed the definition to match it now, which is crazy.
Drives me crazy. I literally spent 1,000 hours in the sun yesterday. No, you didn't. There's not 1,000 hours in the day.
You spent 2.
You spent 2. Just tell me the truth. I don't want to guess.
Yeah.
So that's one. The other one is kind of weird. I hate backtracking. I hate going past a street just to turn back around and come back up that street. I always try to take the shortest way there.
That's fair. You're efficient. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
All right. There's a lot of questions on this list. I probably should have picked some before we sat down. If you got an extra $1,000 every month, what would you spend it on?
I got another $1,000 a month. That's a lot of money in a month. It would definitely be hockey related. I'd either go to, it's Toronto, so 1 game a month. Maybe something like that. Go see more hockey games.
I think that's what if I'm looking at that would be because I think certainly that is enough for Flames season tickets. So I'd, have that, and then that the extra amount would be enough for a pregame meal somewhere most nights.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll be likely moving across the street from the Saddle Dome and the Stampede grounds, so it becomes
nice.
very tempting to sneak over for, at the very least, some Hitman games.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great arena. I went to see a game at the Saddle Dome, maybe not last year, 2 years ago. I mean, it's a great arena, but it's a weird arena because I was way up top at like maybe the center ice line or the blue line, and the roof came down so low that I couldn't see the whole ice. So I had to watch it on TV.
You sat in like the third level.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
very strange.
That's
great atmosphere in there, though.
That's why I don't sit up there. I'm like quite literally, I don't want to pay $40 to go watch it on TV with thousands of other people. I could just watch it on TV for free.
Yeah. It was really weird. I did see Kelly Rudy, though, and I gave him a thumbs up.
Oh, that's nice. Someone has
to.
All right, Nick, one last question for you. We're going to make sure that it is a Red Wings question. It's not on this list. Funnily enough, this table topics question, not here. If you had to remove from the 90s Dynasty Red Wings one of Yzerman, Fedorov, or Lidstrom, which one would you remove from that team?
Really? You're gonna? This is like, don't you have to do like your social call-outs and we can sign off now? Do I really need to answer this question? That's a tough one, but I'd probably go with Fedorov. If I had to remove one of them, it would be Fedorov.
That's probably the right choice.
Yeah, I couldn't take off two of our legendary captains who captained us to Stanley Cups over Fedorov, who missed half a season in a contract dispute.
Yeah, not even a team player. Just you don't want him.
He was a really good player, though.
Well, I'm glad you were able to pick. It's like everyone says, I don't have a favorite child, but you totally do. You just learned, We're not gonna make you pick between Yzerman and Lidstrom, though. We're not gonna go there. But you can think about that and maybe let us know offline which one you would pick.
Okay. Thank you for not asking.
I saw your reaction to the first question, and I didn't want to put you through that again. You would probably never come back. Next time Joel goes on vacation, I'm like, hey Nick, want to come on? No, you asked me that stupid Red Wings question, you jerk.
Yeah, it would be the longest bleep you ever had on the show.
Well, hey, we didn't have to bleep this time when you were on. Thank you for that.
I controlled myself.
The censors thank you.
Yeah.
Well, Nick, thank you very much for coming on. Why don't you let everyone know where they can find you and your great work? You
can find me on Twitter at nicksegan.com. Seguin spelled the same way as the hockey player. Nick Seguin 19 is my Twitter handle.
I didn't know. Do you have nicksegan.com?
Don't go to nicksegan.com.
I'm going there right now. All right, you give out the rest of that. I'm going to Nick Seguin. Oh, actually, don't go to nicksegan.com.
What is it?
This site ahead contains malware. Attackers currently on nicksegan.com might attempt to install dangerous programs on your computer that steal or delete your information. What is going on over at nicksegan.com?
Wow, what can I say? It's a dangerous name.
Yeah,
Live dangerously.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't go to that site. Follow me on Twitter at nicksegan19. And then you can find all of my writing at wingsnation.com, where I just write about the Red Wings. So come read about the Red Wings and how sad we are. It'll be great.
Yeah. Listen to me talk about how sad I am about the Avalanche, then go read about how sad the Red Wings are with Nick, and then you can listen to Joel talk about how happy he is with his Maple Leafs.
Oh, boy. The Maple Leafs.
It's tough. Well, Nick, thank you very much for coming on. Definitely go check out everything happening on Wings Nation, especially Nick's writing. He is quite good.
Wow, thank you.
We're a big fan of everything going on over there. You can find us on Twitter at Fourth Line Podcast, Facebook.com/The Fourth Line Podcast, and TheFourthLinePodcast.com. This week, Mike Laybourne got started something he wants to be covering a little bit more. this year is the NWHL. So he kind of did a wrap up of what's been happening in that league. If you're a fan of the NWHL or live in one of the cities that has an NWHL team and you thought, I want to know a little more, go head over there, check that out. Find us at patreon.com/fourthlinepodcast. Thank you very much to everyone for supporting us on Patreon. Greatly appreciate that. Especially you, Nick. You are a great Patreon supporter. We appreciate you.
I am. Thank you for the great work you guys do.
And Joel should be back next week, knock on wood. Unless his vacation goes incredibly well or incredibly poorly, he will be back. And we will see you then.
Boom City.